Hey guys, welcome to another Bitter Butter Render Blender tutorial. In this tutorial, I'll be showing how you can create an awesome loop just like this. This is a Ducky 3D inspired video, and let's get on with the tutorial. Here in Blender, the first thing we're going to do is click on A to select everything there is and delete. Then we're going to click on Shift A, Mesh, Plane, and then S8 to scale it up by 8 times. Then we can click on Tab to go into edit mode, right click, subdivide, and in the left hand bottom corner, we're going to make the number of cuts from 1 to 30. With that selected, we're going to select around 4 or 5 vertices on each side of the plane. Just like that. Then we're going to click on O to turn on proportional editing, and in the proportional editing tab we're going to select it from smooth to random. With that, we can click on G, Z, move it up, and use the scroll wheel to change how the vertices are being affected, just like that. Once we've done that, we can see that the top vertices are pretty uniform, and that's unrealistic. And to fix it, all we're going to do is click on GZ and just move them up and down on the Z axis. Okay, once we've done that, we can head back into object mode by clicking on Tab, and we're going to add a empty, Shift A, empty, plane axis. Go into the X-axis view mode, click on G, Y, Control to snap it on the grid, and move it all the way to the right hand edge of the plane. Then we can click on the plane that we created, head into the modifiers tab, add modifier, and click on the one with the butterfly icon, the mirror modifier. With that, we can select the mirror object as the empty, and make sure that the axis is Y and not X. There we go. Now that we've done that, we can head back into X-axis view again, and we're going to click on Shift A, camera, to add a camera. And then we're going to move it to the left hand side of the plane by clicking on G, Y, Control to snap on grid, and we're going to move it right at the edge, just like that. Now if you're following along, the location on the y-axis will be -8 meters for the camera. Then we're going to make the location for the z-axis 0.5, just so that it's above the plane. Then we're going to make the rotation for the x-axis around 93, the y to be 0, and the z to be 0 as well. Then we can head into the camera view by clicking on 0 on your number pad, go into the object data properties, and make the focal length a little wider, such as 40 millimeters. Once we've done that, we're going to start animating the camera. To do that, we're going to be in the first frame, click on Edit, Preferences, Animation, and make sure that the default interpolation is linear. It usually is Bezier, and we want linear. So we're going to X out of that, and now what we need to do is we're going to go into the first frame, make sure that the end frame is 120, go into the transform properties, and make sure to click on that dot near the y-axis. With that selected, you're going to go to frame 120, click on the right arrow button on your keyboard to go to frame 121, and we're going to make the y value 24 meters. Just like that, and we're going to click on the diamond again. Now if we play that back, you can see that the camera is animated. Now if we go into camera view, you can see that we can see the end of the scene. We don't want that, so what we're going to do is click on the plane itself, go into the modifiers tab, and we're going to add a array modifier. With the array modifier selected, we're going to make the factor of the y-axis 1 and the factor of the x-axis 0, just like that, and make the count a higher value, such as 20. Now it will actually look like it's looping. Now what we need to do is add another modifier, which is the wireframe modifier, just like that, and we're going to make the thickness a value of 0.002 meters, and make sure to untick replace original, just like that. Once we've gotten that, we're going to go back into the shading properties over here. Okay, with that selected, we're going to scroll down, get the base color, and make it a little darker, or a lot darker, just like that. And we're going to scroll down and find metallic and make it a value of 1, just like that. Once we've done that, we're going to add another texture by clicking on the plus, new, and over here we're going to make it a emission shader instead of a principal BSDF, and we're going to make the color a value of a blue color, such as that. Once we've done that, we can change the strength to a value of 50. Now what we're going to do is get into camera view and go into rendered view over here. As you can see, it's still dark, and to fix that, we're going to go ahead into the modifiers tab, and in the wireframe modifier, we're going to select the material offset to be 2, just like that. And now as you can see, even though this is supposed to look all gloomy, it doesn't. And to fix that, we're going to go into the render properties, and since this is Eevee, we're going to want to turn on ambient occlusion and bloom and screen space reflections, and then you get that really good looking blue emission. Then we're going to just drop that bloom section down below, and we're just going to mess with the threshold a little, because as you can see, it's still a little too much of that bloom. So a value of this is good for now. We might have to change it later on. Maybe we can go with the intensity of a value of 0.07. And we're just going to go with the value of these for now. Once we've done that, we're going to head into the shading tab. And with the actual plane selected, we're going to first go into the shading properties over here, select the black texture that we created, and we're going to add a noise texture. Shift A, noise texture. We're going to add a bump texture or bump node with it, plug in the factor into height and the normal into normal. With the value of, let's say, 12, we're going to make the detail a lot higher, such as 16. With that, if you go into camera view, you can see that it's kind of giving it a bumpy texture, but we'll just turn down the roughness a little to make it that shiny, good looking texture. You still can't see it too clearly, but we'll change the bloom settings a little so it doesn't overpower the bump texture. With that selected, we're going to go into the world shading, go into rendered view, just like that. And we're going to add a environment texture. Shift A, search up environment, just like that. And we're going to plug in the color into image. With that, then you're going to want to open up the HDRI, which I will link down in the description below. Open. And there we've gotten our HDRI in the background, but this is still a little too strong, so we'll go with the value of 0.3 for our strength. Then all you're going to want to do is click on Shift A. We're going to add a texture coordinate node, just like that, and we're going to add a mapping node, mappin. With the mapping node selected, we're going to plug in generated into vector and vector into vector, just like that. And then now what you're going to want to do is make sure that you mess around in the Z rotation until there's no mountains visible and it's just a clear sky. Now obviously it's fine if you just have a tiny bit of mountain in the bottom, but that's because the sun will be covering it. And once we've gotten that, we're going to add a hue saturation node. So search up hue saturation node, plug it in between the image texture and the background node, and make the hue a value of 0.6 to give that purple colored sky. Then what we're going to do is actually add the sun itself. So to do that, we're going to click on Shift A, Mesh, UV Sphere, and we're going to open up the tab. Make sure that the rings and segments are, let's say, 64 and 32, just like that. Once we've changed the rings and segments, we're going to right click to shade smooth, and we're going to move it all the way back on the y-axis, just like that. Then we can head into camera view, and we're going to scale it up until you can see it and it's nice and big, just like that. And as you can see, you can still see the rings and segments. So if you want to fix that, you can add a modifier and add a subdivision modifier, just like that, and make both of these values 2. Okay, with that selected, you're going to go into shading properties again. Over here, add a new texture, and we're going to make it a emission texture again, and we're going to make it a value of orange with the saturation of 1, just like that, and make the strength a lot higher, such as 22. And as you can see, it glows, but as you can see, it's still overpowering everything else, and that gets really annoying. So what we're going to do is head into render properties again, and we're just going to dial down the bloom setting. So in the bloom settings, we're just going to turn the radius down, and as you can see, you get a lot more of that gloomier texture, and also the intensity, just like that. Okay, in the layout tab, if we just play through the animation, you can see that it almost loops. The sun, however, glitches out, and there's a good reason for that. It's because the sun is stationary in a single position and the camera is moving closer to it. So with how parallax works is that is obviously going to look bigger in the camera as you move closer to it. So to fix that, we're going to head into the first frame, and we're going to click on the sun, and we're going to shift click the camera, Control P, and object keep transform. And what that basically does is it makes sure that the sun moves with the camera, creating an illusion that it is really far away and stationary. And then one last thing, we're going to head into the render properties again, scroll down, and in color management, we're going to make sure that the view look is maybe a little higher of a contrast, like medium contrast. But obviously you don't have to do that if you don't want to. You can always edit that in post-processing. Okay, well that was it for today's tutorial. Now all you have to do is go ahead and render it out and then hit that subscribe, like button and the notification button, and I'll see you in the next one.